The scene unfolds in a Cambridge laboratory, where a restrained monkey occupies the lab table. Multiple screens display global horrors, wars, fires, and conflicts. Amidst this backdrop, a sinister experiment is conducted on the monkeys. Suddenly, animal rights activists storm into the laboratory, determined to liberate the agitated primates. Despite the scientists' warnings of the monkeys being infected with the rage virus, the activists remain undeterred. Ignoring the scientists' pleas, they proceed with their mission. Tragically, their actions lead to calamity as the freed monkey sinks its teeth into one of the activists, transforming her into a monstrous being. After 28 days have elapsed, Jim awakens in a hospital bed within an isolated ward, finding himself alone. Removing the tubes, he ventures into the deserted hospital corridor, where chaos reigns supreme, everything overturned and scattered, with no sign of life. Quenching his thirst with soda from a shattered vending machine, Jim steps onto the abandoned streets of London, observing the clutter left behind by a hurried evacuation. Amidst scattered newspapers, he learns of the mass exodus from the city, leaving behind only a handful of stragglers who seek their missing loved ones. Suspecting the existence of a shelter where the remaining survivors might be holed up, Jim explores a nearby church. To his horror, he finds it filled with motionless figures, some of whom begin to stir, their eyes filled with madness. Suddenly, a crazed priest emerges, his eyes ablaze with a terrifying intensity. Jim fights him off in a harrowing struggle before fleeing from the throng of other awakened individuals, now turned into zombies. On the street, two strangers wearing gas masks rush to Jim's aid, wielding bottles of fuel to fend off the encroaching horde. They swiftly guide Jim to their underground shelter, shielding him from the nightmare unfolding above ground. For Jim, who previously worked as a courier and endured a lengthy hospital stay following a car accident, the sudden descent of madness upon the world remains incomprehensible.
I've got some bad news.
Mark and Selena introduce themselves to Jim, explaining the rapid spread of a deadly virus across Britain, turning people into zombies within minutes of infection. London has lost power and contact with the outside world for weeks, with no government, police, or military left. They share the grim news that the virus has also reached France and the United States. Jim's new acquaintances suggest that his family is likely deceased, which he struggles to accept. Despite warnings against it, Jim insists on returning home to find his parents. Mark advises against going alone and warns about the dangers of being outside at night. Nevertheless, the group accompanies Jim to his house the following day. As Jim searches desperately for his parents, he discovers them lifeless in their bedroom. They had chosen to end their lives with a lethal dose of sleeping pills rather than succumb to the virus. Holding onto a photo of Jim, overwhelmed with grief, Jim is unable to cope with the tragedy. In a somber tone, Mark reveals that his own family suffered a worse fate. They became zombies. As night descends, the group opts to stay at Jim's house. As Jim reminisces over videos of his still living parents by candlelight, the flickering light draws the attention of nearby zombies. They breach the house, intent on attacking the group. Reacting swiftly, Mark and Selena engage the zombies, preventing harm to Jim and themselves. Unfortunately, Mark gets exposed to infected fluid, prompting Selena to swiftly terminate him before the transformation takes hold. Jim and Selena hurriedly vacate the premises before more zombies converge. Selena explains her grim decision to Jim, emphasizing that in such dire circumstances, traditional moral codes lose their relevance.
Staying alive's as good as it gets.
As they notice the glowing window in a nearby high-rise building, the friends make their way toward it, hoping for refuge for the night. Their path is obstructed by zombies on the staircase, leading to a frantic pursuit. Thankfully, they find sanctuary when they encounter the apartment's owner, Hank, clad in protective gear, who wards off the attacking zombies. Hank's teenage daughter, Hannah, also resides there, and both extend a warm welcome to their unexpected guests. In private, Selena confides in Jim, expressing concerns about the potential burden their new companions might pose. She asserts that if they impede her chances of survival, she will not hesitate to abandon them. Jim disagrees, advocating for maintaining compassion and mutual support even in dire circumstances. In the morning, Hank declares that staying in the apartment is pointless because water is running out, and there hasn't been any rain for 10 days. However, Hank turns on the radio, where one recording keeps repeating. A group of soldiers assure that they have set up a headquarters where they can feed and protect survivors. They invite all willing individuals to join them. The soldiers even claim to have a solution to the infection threat. Hank expresses his determination to seek out the soldiers, explaining that his motive for bringing survivors to his home was to enhance their collective odds of reaching the shelter safely. Selena voices her dissent, harboring doubts about the feasibility of reaching the soldiers' sanctuary. But the rest of the group, disillusioned with the bleak prospects of remaining in London, resolves to embark on the journey and join Hank in his quest. Embarking on their journey by car, they encounter a setback when they experience a flat tire while traversing an underground tunnel, necessitating a swift replacement to evade the encroaching zombies attracted to the darkness. Amidst the tense situation, a swarm of rats diverts the infected away from the car, allowing the group to successfully change the tire and escape the tunnel just in time. The friends soon reach a supermarket, untouched by infection and brimming with groceries. With relief, they indulge in the freedom to select any provisions they desire, savoring a moment of carefree respite. As they conclude their shopping, Hank leaves his credit card at the checkout, a gesture symbolic of the shifting priorities where money holds little relevance in their altered reality. Their journey leads them to a gas station where they replenish the car's fuel and secure additional gas cans. Jack, cautious of the surroundings, ventures into a roadside diner where motionless figures are strewn about. Suddenly, an infected child attempts to attack Jack, prompting him to act swiftly to neutralize the threat. Despite his unease, Jack chooses not to disclose the harrowing encounter to his companions. Continuing their travels, the group pauses in the wilderness, greeted by a serene lakeside vista and a tranquil herd of horses. Encountering this scene, a glimmer of hope flickers within them, fostering belief in their capacity to endure and eventually reclaim a semblance of normalcy. Even Selena, typically skeptical, finds her resolve softened by the moment.
I was wrong when I said that staying alive is as good as it gets.
As the journey progresses, the girl realizes the paramount importance of being with the people she cares about, while Jim finds solace in rediscovering a sense of family, viewing Hank as a father figure. Fear of losing his newfound companions grips Jim as they press forward. In the morning, the group proceeds with their journey and safely arrives at the location mentioned by the soldiers on the radio. However, they find only abandoned military equipment with no soldiers in sight. Upon inspecting the area, the friends suspect that the infected have infiltrated the military. Irritated, Hank paces around, disheartened by their seemingly fruitless trip. Suddenly, he hears a crow's cry and gazes upward. To his horror, he notices liquid dripping from the bird's beak, contaminated, and it accidentally enters Hank's eye. Realizing his imminent transformation into a zombie, he expresses his love to his daughter before succumbing to the infection and losing control. In a swift response, soldiers emerge from the bushes and swiftly neutralize him. The soldiers escort the apprehensive group to their shelter, a fortified base set within an abandoned mansion, where they receive a warm reception with clean beds and hot water. Despite the hospitality, Hannah finds no solace. Her heart aches for her father. Celine, too, is shaken by the recent events, losing not only Hank but also her faith in a brighter future. In an attempt to uplift Celine's spirits, Jim kisses her, revealing his long-standing affection. Though Celine reciprocates, she hesitates, recognizing that love feels inappropriate amidst the current turmoil. Under the leadership of Major Henry West, the squad of soldiers, numbering just over a dozen uninfected individuals, struggles against the encroaching threat of the infected. The surrounding area is heavily mined, and the mansion is fortified with high fences and constant surveillance to keep the monsters at bay. Major West remains steadfast in his belief that they can overcome the horde and rebuild civilization, despite the lack of an antidote for the infection. One of the soldiers, recently bitten and turned into a zombie, sits restrained in the backyard, a grim reminder of the dire circumstances they face. Major West keeps him alive to observe how long zombies can survive without sustenance. As evening falls, the soldiers and newcomers gather for dinner, but tension simmers beneath the surface. The newcomers, wary of the soldiers' intentions, refuse the offered food, feeling disillusioned by the lack of concrete solutions. Moreover, Major West doesn't see anything unusual about the zombie invasion. After all, people have always tried to destroy each other. Some of the Major's statements sound frightening. A sudden explosion interrupts the uneasy peace, signaling that the zombies have breached the perimeter. The soldiers swiftly mobilize and repel the attack. After the battle, the soldiers become rowdy and make advances towards Celine. Jim and the most reasonable soldier defend the girl, and she runs off to her room. Major West intervenes to settle the dispute. He understands the situation and invites Jim for a conversation. The Major explains soldiers' desire for women to help rebuild their world after eradicating the infected. West's radio invitation was a ploy to attract women who could bring hope and companionship to their isolated existence, despite its questionable methods.
Women mean a future.
Horrified by Major West's revelations and determined to protect his friends from any unwanted actions, Jim races after Celine and Hannah, eager to leave the seemingly unsafe sanctuary. However, their attempt to exit is thwarted as armed soldiers, under West's command, intercept them at the exit. Jim is overpowered, knocked down, and, along with the soldier who defended the girls, taken to isolation. Meanwhile, Celine and Hannah are now under the control of the military. In isolation, Jim and the rational soldier share the belief that the infection might not have spread beyond the British Isles. According to their companion, the rest of the world might be functioning normally, with the British Isles kept under quarantine until the infected are eradicated. Jim comes to terms with this realization, aligning himself with the soldiers' perspective. The following morning, the soldiers lead the prisoners, including Jim, into the woods with the intent to eliminate them. A fortunate twist occurs when the youngest soldier misses his shot, allowing Jim to evade capture, hide, and ultimately leap over the fence. As he falls to the ground, he gazes up to see a plane in the sky, a beacon of hope indicating that life continues unaffected outside of Britain. Amidst the tense atmosphere within the mansion, the soldiers coerce Celine and Hannah into donning fancy dresses in an attempt to enhance their appeal. Despite Celine's efforts to shield Hannah from intimidation, the soldiers persist in their unsettling behavior. As despair looms over them, the piercing wail of a siren breaks the silence, drawing the soldiers out of the mansion. Jim strategically activated the siren to lure the soldiers away, initiating a diversion that allows him to swiftly incapacitate the majority of them with calculated precision. With the path cleared, Jim races back to the mansion, freeing the infected soldier to neutralize those holding the girls captive. Chaos erupts as a fierce battle ensues, with some soldiers falling victim to the infected while Jim dispatches the remainder. Throughout the turmoil, Celine and Hannah emerge unscathed, their safety Jim's unwavering priority. With the soldiers subdued, Jim finds solace in Celine's embrace, assuring her of a glimmer of hope. Joined by Hannah, the trio hastily makes their escape from the ominous confines of the mansion, racing towards the awaiting car. However, Major West awaits them in the back seat. He wounds Jim and attempts to take the girls captive. But the Major's plans are ruined by the infected, who attack him. Finally, Hannah, Celine, and the wounded Jim leave the dreadful mansion behind. Celine manages to stabilize Jim and treat his wound. Jim regains consciousness after 28 days. Now, the friends live in a cottage by the lake. There are no infected nearby. All these days, Celine sewed huge pieces from dresses and curtains. Hannah rushes into the house, having seen a plane in the sky. The friends quickly take the pieces outside to the meadow in front of the house, arranging them into a massive word. Hello. They jump next to it, waving their hands with all their might.
Do you think you saw us this time?
The plane begins its descent. Soon, it will pick up with the group and transport them to safety, far removed from the infected and the chaos of desperate survivors. How do you think, in a critical situation, people can become more dangerous than zombies? Share your opinion in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.